If you struggle with discipline and consistency in your business, then this video is for you. So, do you love a plan and a planner? But often you get sidetracked and that plan falls by the wayside. Do you kickstart the week with a schedule that you feel really excited about because it's going to slay your productivity, but by Wednesday, that momentum has all but gone astray? And do you find yourself saying things like, I don't know what happened. The week just went. I'll start again on Monday. And do you judge yourself relentlessly for being undisciplined, for being unable to follow through on things? If any of that resonates with you, then what if I said that this has very little, those behaviors have very little to do with discipline? And I say this because I actually already know that you are disciplined. If you were to zoom out, you would find so much evidence and examples of things that you have followed through on, that you have completed. For example, you've stuck by your business. You probably have some coaching qualifications, the certificates to prove your commitment and ability to follow through. Maybe you're a practitioner in various healing modalities that you have to train in. And I'm sure you have so many other accomplishments and achievements that required real commitment. So the question then becomes, well, if discipline isn't the issue, what actually is? Well, what your mind is interpreting as a lack of discipline is often a protective pattern. A pattern designed to protect you from feeling, more often than not, out of control. And the irony is that it does work. It actually works very effectively. It soothes something internally by helping you avoid feelings such as anxiety, overwhelm, that feeling of, I can't deal with all of this, it's too much. And let's be honest, nobody wants to feel those feeling states. They're very, very uncomfortable. So instead, we unconsciously create behaviors that help us to avoid them. So I want to give you an example from my own personal experience. So one of my very familiar emotional states was overwhelm. And I used to feel overwhelmed a lot, and not just mild overwhelm, but a really intense, crushing overwhelm. My head felt like it was about to burst. I would have that like really heavy contraction in my chest. Everything felt quite throbby, and my mind would just be racing all the things that I had to do, and they all felt urgent. So whenever I got that feeling, I would have to do something. So my default behavior was to grab a flip chart paper, grab a bunch of colored pens, and start creating some strategy, a structure, a plan. I would often create a big circle, cut it into 8 segments, categorize everything I had to do, color code it, and map out the next fortnight. Of course, there'd be no delegation, everything I had to do it myself, but that's a whole other pattern. That's a whole other video. But the relief I felt once I'd completed my strategy, my plan, having that structure for the week, the relief I felt in doing that was just off the charts. Everything would calm down. My nervous system would calm, the mind would quiet. Everything just felt, peace again. In my mind would even celebrate me, good job, well done. And so everything started to feel, safe again. But the truth here is that I wasn't actually solving the overwhelm. I was avoiding it, avoiding feeling it. The behavior was a salve. It was a very clever one. It was very effective, but it didn't actually solve the problem. Now, that seems okay on first blush, but it becomes a problem in business in really 3 key ways. So if you identify with these patterns in any way, there are 3 ways these really matter in your business and become a key problem in your business. So the first one is that your emotional state starts driving your business. The feelings you're trying to avoid start running the show. And that's never going to lead to a sustainable growth or satisfaction in your business. There's always going to be that yo-yoing effect. The second reason this matters so much in business is that you begin to lose trust in yourself. You start building a story like, I'm undisciplined, I never follow through. What's the point in starting? I know I'll just, I won't complete it. I know I won't follow through. And over time, what this can create is a kind of learned helplessness. And eventually, it doesn't just become a default, or it doesn't just be a behavior, it's something you do. It actually starts to become an identity. So you start to identify as somebody who is undisciplined. And then this leads to the third reason this matters in your business, why it's such a problem in your business, is that the impact of that identity then creates the results in your business. So the law of cause and effect kicks in here. If you have an internal story that I never follow through, I am inconsistent, I can't sustain things, I am undisciplined, then your external reality can't help but mirror that. So you end up with patterns in your business that look like feast or famine. So because you're doing in feast or famine input, feast or famine activity, then you get feast or famine income as an output. You have that stopping and starting in momentum constantly in your business. You feel like you're constantly restarting in business instead of building and growing that sustainable business. So here's really what I want you to take from this video, remembering this isn't a discipline issue, it's not a consistency issue. What is actually going on is this internal protection strategy, we call them the protective paradigm, that has become outdated for the level at which you're operating at. That's why it's really self-perpetuating. That's why it keeps coming up, because it's trying to be released. And the reason this matters so much is because what got you here won't get you there to where you really want to go, your next level. So the real work isn't about trying to force more discipline. It's learning to meet what's underneath the pattern, so you no longer need the pattern. So if this is landing for you, if you can see yourself in this pattern, these behaviors, then this is exactly the kind of work we do. We support our clients with inside our coaching programs. We don't just fix the behavior. We go underneath it to the actual root of what is driving it. So if you want to explore this for yourself, you can find the details below, or you can book a call with me and we will look at where you're at in your business, what is really going on in it, especially if you feel like you're stagnating in your business, you're not moving forward, maybe it feels like you're plateauing in your business. All of that is often created by a protective paradigm that is seeking to be released.